you, Mr. Van Jones, for your participation. You are our brother. You don't need an introduction. And Van, I'm not going to give you one. So you come on and give us a story.
Good. Thank you so much. These are difficult times and there's a lot of fear. Obviously, the opposite of fear is faith, and our faith leaders are going to be called upon in ways that they've never been called upon before, in my view. I understand you've been doing a lot of understanding on the theological side, the spiritual side. I just want to talk a little bit about the worldly side. Um, it is very difficult to defeat an adversary if you do not have an adequate and accurate assessment of both their intentions and their capabilities. I've not spoken about this publicly before, but I've had teams doing research to understand what we're up against. And this is not a normal progressive versus conservative, Democrat versus Republican kind of a fight. This is a very different thing. Um, the Trump coalition is a broad coalition. It has some honest folks in there, just some union folks, want more jobs and lower inflation. It's got some white nationalist elements. All these are elements that we are used to from Trump 1.0. There's a new element, and the intentions of that new element are outside the bounds of what Democratic Republic can accept. There's a movement called NRX, the neo-reactionary movement. I'm going to throw a lot of terms and names at you. You can just Google them yourself. You're going to be shocked. By the way, don't Google them and then think you're going to do something else. Happy. Wait till your kids go to sleep and then look at it. But there is a movement called NRX, the neo-reactionary movement. This is a movement that is concentrated in Silicon Valley. It's concentrated on the technology sector. It is its goal is what's called the dark enlightenment. What does that mean? Their main philosopher is a guy named Curtis Yarvin, Yarvin like Marvin. He is probably the most dangerous intellectual in the world. He thinks that Black people were harmed when we were released from slavery. He believes that the United States should no longer be a democracy. Explicitly says this, that we should have a CEO monarch, in other words, a dictator. And he has made the case so powerfully. J.D. Vance quotes Curtis Yarvin. Peter Thiel, the big billionaire backer of a lot of this, is closely aligned with Curtis Yarvin. Curtis Yarvin had a concept called RAGE, RAGE, as the first step toward a seven-step process to eliminate American democracy, to concentrate all power in the executive branch, to sideline the courts, to sideline Congress, and to impose a dictatorship on the country. The first step in this process is called RAGE. What is RAGE? RAGE, retire all government employees. Retire all government employees. Do you see what's going on? Rage is the blueprint for Doge. What's the next step on Curtis Yarvin's strategy? Grab all the data. What's the first thing that Elon Musk did? In a normal quote unquote coup, you send in a bunch of young men with guns. They sent in a bunch of young men with laptops. And the first thing they did, they started grabbing all the data. I'm not saying that the entire Trump coalition is bought into this idea. I'm saying there is a sinister element that seems to be the dominant leading element that is bought into ideas. Once you understand the Curtis Yarvin ideals and goals, things stop being chaotic in your mind. You see this is a step-by-step plan that is being carried out. Now, there are contradictions in the Trump coalition. Everybody's not on board with this, but this is clearly the dominant element. There's another problem with this group, which is the other idea that they embrace is the ideal of monopoly. Peter Thiel, who is the big billionaire backer of J.D. Vance, Senator Blake, all these are people who have been backed by Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel wrote a book called Zero to One, which many of you may have already read. Notice in there he talks about the virtues of monopoly, of having one company completely dominate a sector with no competition. If you take Peter Thiel's idea of monopoly and you take Curtis Yarvin's idea of monarchy, those two ideas together are the two ideas that have been discredited the past 100 years. Post Enlightenment, you don't want a monarchy, you want democracy. You don't want monopoly, you want market competition. These two figures are opposed to both. But if you put those two ideas together, you get something that looks like fascism, a dictatorial government supporting monopolies. That is a core element of fascism. And so when people wave their arms, oh, fascistic government, authoritarianism, blah, 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 it sounds a little bit foolish because we have a left that cried wolf in Trump 1.0. Every tweet was the end of the republic. But people their intuitions are not wrong. Their analysis is probably needs to be updated, but their intuitions are not wrong. Curtis Yarvin is promoting monarchy. Peter Thiel is promoting monopoly. Together, you now have a cabinet of billionaires. It's hard to know exactly who is bought in on this, but clearly now the dominant idea, uh, powering the Trump coalition, not the idea they're promoting. They're promoting a bunch of ideas, populism, racism, et cetera. But the ideas that are powering the Trump coalition, driving the Trump coalition, are the dark enlightenment ideas. Now, those are the intentions. Very, very sinister. This is not like a normal basketball game where maybe somebody's playing a little bit rough. This is we're playing basketball, and some people are coming onto the court with chainsaws, a bulldozer, and a baseball bat. They're not even playing the same game that we're playing, and so we've got to understand that. But then people have terrible ideas all the time. Just because their intentions are bad, who cares? It sounds dumb. You also have to look at their capabilities, and their capabilities are extraordinary. It's not just that the Trump coalition now has the White House, the Supreme Court, the Senate, the House. That would be formidable. It's that they also have Elon Musk, the richest man in the history of the world, and a bunch of other billionaires. Andreessen Horowitz, which used to be center left, is now objectively pretty far right. Their house philosopher, Balaji, seems increasingly far right. They supported and are very enthusiastic about supporting the Trump administration and other billionaires as well. So you're beginning to look at, if you'd said the billionaire class 30 years ago, you sound like an idiot because there weren't enough billionaires in the world to fill up a classroom 50 years ago, 40 years ago. Now you can say there's a class of billionaires, and the dominant element of that class is the tech sector, and the tech sector has moved from central left to far right. That creates massive capabilities that no group of progressive Christians, African American leaders, Democratic Party activists have ever confronted. It's not just they have the whole government, they have billions of dollars, the entire tech sector, and a media system that they've built, podcasts, Twitch streamers, that is actually bigger than the mainstream media in a lot of respects. And so this is a serious challenge. People who tell you, "Oh, well, we didn't lose by that much, and it's not that bad, and we'll 2 years we'll," like, I think that is ill considered. I think that this is a big setback for democracy, and I think that the intentions and the capabilities are unfamiliar, and that does require people to take a step back and to really strategize. What is it that we want to do moving forward? The last thing I'll say is this: you're either going to have a new enlightenment or a new dark ages. That's basically what you're faced with in the next couple of decades here. And so far, the people who are pro and new dark ages, as was said earlier, people who don't believe in egalitarianism, don't believe in democracy, are objectively racist. Elon Musk and Peter Thiel both come out of South Africa. Apparently, Mandela beat apartheid over there and shipped it over here because now we got to deal with these same idiots. This is pretty serious stuff. And so, my team has gone pretty deep into the research. They are not invincible because this small clique of billionaires with terrible ideas have basically hijacked the MAGA movement and are actually going to crush the MAGA movement as well. So they're not invincible. There are cracks and contradictions, et cetera. But this particular group needs to, I think, be taken very seriously. NRX, the neo-reactionary movement, Curtis Yarvin, the Dark Enlightenment. These are all terms I encourage people to look at. And thank you very much for your time.